ChucTayyy, and I am here with your RETV Sports Update. You can catch me here every Thursday talking junk and spitting facts. I remember my tagline this week, guys. Let's get started. Anybody who watched last week, anybody that knows me, knows where this is going. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 9-0. Is that a big deal? Yes. Are y'all talking about this in the correct way? No. But do I have a problem with the fact that you guys are not talking about this in the correct way? No. And let me tell you why. So Stephen A. Smith today decided that he was going to tell Ryan Clark and that guy Max, who I always disagree with because I quite frankly think he's an idiot, said that he does not want to come on record and say the Steelers are going to have an undefeated season, or he wants them to be undefeated, because basically what happens is Big Ben and company do not do what they need to do under pressure. Basically that when there's high expectations for them to meet, they don't meet them. And then, of course, everybody's ragging on them. Now we walk into this season and nobody was saying anything about the Steelers because, of course, we were talking about Kansas City. We were talking about Cam going to the Pats, talking about Tom Brady going to the Bucks. And it was kind of like boo-hoo for the Steelers. And yet here they are, the only undefeated team in the league at present. And you're not talking about it. Keep not talking about it, guys. I mean, is it a wonderful time to be a Steeler fan? Yes. Are excessive amounts of alcohol being consumed on Sundays when we watch them play? I'm not going to say that I do that because my mom watches this, but I know that Steeler fans are extremely stressed out. It is super stressful to be a Steeler fan, guys. I've been one almost 30 years. It's stressful, okay? But I agree with Stephen A. because literally nobody, not even me, talking about the Steelers walking into this season. Go back to past episodes. See how many times I mentioned the Steelers. I'll wait. I'll give you a second. None. The answer is none. We talked about Cam. We talked about Tom. We talked about the Chiefs. We've been talking about COVID. We talked about he who shall not be named. All these things. And I didn't talk about the Steelers. Why? Because being a Steeler fan, you just know that you are. The season is going to be what it's going to be. And we don't really need to discuss it. If we win, great. If we don't, then it's going to be a gray day on Monday in Pittsburgh, because that's what happens when the Steelers lose. However, never did I ever think that here we are in November talking about the Steelers are undefeated. And I don't know if I didn't record that week. I believe it was election week, so you guys didn't get an episode. But Mike Tomlin is now the winningest black coach in NFL history. That's a thing. That is a thing. Guys, and we're not talking about it. But if there was all of this crazy pressure talking about who they have and what Juju Smith-Schuster was going to do and all of these things, then it wouldn't be the season that we are currently having. So am I going to say that the Steelers are going to go undefeated? I am not. Do I hope that they go back to the Super Bowl? Of course I do. But I agree with Stephen A. I don't think that makes me any less of a Steeler fan than I am. I just know that although pressure creates diamonds, or whatever that saying is, that by not being in the spotlight, it is causing the Steelers to take that step back, do what they need to do, and that is why they are undefeated. That's just my take on it. We will see what happens as we continue over the next few weeks, shall we? We shall. Speaking of the NFL, now all of a sudden, they have these strict COVID-19 protocols. It's like week 10, week 11. It's like we've been doing this way too long for you to just now be coming up with protocols. I mean, more than 60% of the NFL teams have tested positive for COVID at some point during the last 10 or 11 weeks. So now you're making them wear masks and what's the plastic thing? Face shields. Now you're saying only 10 players and a coach allowed in the locker room. Now you're saying they got to wear masks and facial shields when they're with trainers or team doctors. Now all of the team meetings have to be virtual unless there's a big enough space at the facility to accommodate everybody to be socially distanced. That seems a little backwards, guys. Make it make sense. like I've been saying for weeks, and I will say until the end of my time, Roger Goodell is an idiot. And it should not have taken this long for you to have strict protocols in place for COVID-19. We all knew this was going to get worse as we progressed into the winter. And it's not new. Like, Fauci been saying it for months, guys. It's only going to get worse. So why are we just not hopping on this train? Why wasn't this put in place when, like, 50% of the Tennessee Titans were COVID stricken? I don't understand. That just doesn't make any sense. It's reactive when you had months to be proactive, because we have been doing this since March. It is November. You had all of that time in the off season to figure out how we can reduce the spread of COVID. And it should have started with masks and face shields. You really should have been monitoring what your players were doing when they weren't at the team facility. Is it unrealistic to say you guys have to live in a hotel for all of these months? And possibly. But how about, like, check up on these grown men and make sure that they're doing what they need to do so that they don't have COVID? It's not that hard. The Seahawks cut that little boy for sneaking some girl into the hotel, but y'all don't even know what y'all players are doing. And that's why they have COVID. Anyway, it's smart because it needs to happen, but it's stupid because it's just now happening. We have 5 more weeks of football, and now you're trying to do something about it? It's not smart, Roger. It's not. You're late. Anyway, so we'll see how that goes. They said that some of these guidelines have been in place for the last month or so, 4-ish weeks, and they've seen a reduction in COVID, so that's a plus. But again, these are protocols that should have been in place since the beginning of the season, but everybody's all reactive instead of being proactive. Anyway, so guys, at the time of this recording, the NBA draft has not yet happened. By the time you watch it, it will have happened. So maybe we'll get a bonus episode. I'm not going to promise you that, guys, but we'll see what happens. What ESPN is currently projecting is that LaMelo Ball is probably going to go number one to Minnesota. Guys, Lamangelo and Low Larceny and the other one, they don't really do it for me. Them Ball kids, they just don't do it for me. They're not terrible players. I'm not saying they're bad players. It's not for me. It's just not for me. Here's really my biggest thing with the draft this year. We didn't have March Madness. We didn't finish out the college basketball season on this half of the year, at the beginning of this half of the year. Overseas players also didn't have their year end. There were no showcases or anything like that. So what I'm really wondering is, how did these teams decide, so maybe let me frame it this way. If I'm a scout, right, and I go out to see a player, we'll just say I went out to see the Ball kid, and I'm like, okay, he's a good player, but just as an example, he's a little weak from the short corner. Okay, so I'm not saying that he is. This is just I'm just framing the story, so don't jump down my throat talking about his short corner game is okay. So he's a little weak in the short corner. I think that's something that he needs to work on. Boom, COVID hits, right? Does he work on it? Do we know that he gets better at it? Do we know that he's even capable of developing a short corner game? So, so these are the questions that I have that I'm wondering, do these questions get answered, and how much of that plays a factor into the draft picks coming? Because you don't know where did these, other than maybe working out with your trainer, like a personal trainer, personal coach, something a scout wouldn't be able to see that you worked on this, I guess maybe you could have sent them a tape. It's just this whole dynamic is off because of COVID. I mean, we got to get through it, right? I mean, the draft is going to happen. Somebody's going to go number one, so on and so forth. That's all cool. I just really wonder what was that. The word that comes to mind is procedure, and I don't really think that that's the right word. But what was... I just want to know what happened when they all looked back at their notes. Like, well, that kid has this, but he doesn't quite have this, because you don't know if that kid could ever develop that, right? Like, I'm sure at some point somebody was like, Ben Simmons is a great player, but he can't shoot a 3 to save his life. Like, and he probably worked on that, and then eventually they got over it. He still can't shoot threes, right? But if it's something that is actually, you are actually able to work on, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because I just remember when he like made like 2 threes in a game and it was like a headline. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's what I think of. Like, how did your scouting and drafting strategy change because you didn't have them to look at for like 6 months, basically? I mean, COVID hit in March, so let's just say you start scouting them like this time last year, and then, I mean, it's college, like, yeah, they still play, but what, they made it to like February? I guess they made it to almost tournament time, but still, like, tournament can make or break. Then you have those post-tournament workouts, you know, working with agents if you're going to go in the draft, working with trainers, all that. Like, that stuff more than likely didn't happen. So I'm just really interested. I mean, we may never know. They're not going to like give us their scouting notes, right? But I just, those are the things that go through my mind. So the draft, like I said, by the time you watch this, it will have happened. May not be over, but, or like completely over, because, you know, trades and such things. But I don't have anything to report on it right now. I guess we'll talk about that next week and see if what's his name's brother, I hate the way he shoots, went number 1 or whatever number he went. We'll talk about some other draft players. And then, of course, what we're going to talk about next week is free agency, which takes place or begins on Friday. Whew! And already things are happening. Moves are being made. Chris Paul is going to the Suns. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Anthony Davis opted out. Oh, just next week's going to be a fun show, guys. Just get your notepads out, and it is going to be fun. What I will say at this point is the only person staying at the Lakers for sure is LeBron James. And if anybody else stays, I will be pleasantly surprised. And LeBron can't even go anywhere until like next year. But you know what I'm saying? If Anthony Davis stays, I'll be surprised. I will be surprised. Yep, I will be. Because I just personally feel like I came here, I got my chip, I'm out, and he's gone. That's what I think. I could be wrong. We'll see next week. And that is about it for me this week, guys. Again, I am your girl, ChucTayyy. You can catch me here every Thursday, talking junk and spitting facts. See you next week.